Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Paige of Swords podcast. This is episode 5 with Sarah, who is a figure competitor. And Sarah, you live in Virginia, right?
Actually, Maryland.
Maryland, but you're on the border?
30 minutes, yeah, border of Virginia and DC.
Okay.
So, close enough.
Yeah, so, go ahead and say your age, and you just said your location, and we'll start there, and then your show history too. What shows have you done?
Okay. So I'm 27, and as far as my show history goes, I've only done one show last year. Okay. I believe it was the Maryland Championship and East Coast Classic.
Yeah.
I'm still relatively new to the whole bodybuilding industry. It wasn't until 2018 that I actually started being serious with bodybuilding training style. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, it was just mainly dabbling in CrossFit or powerlifting, Olympic lifting. I tried pretty much everything, but it never felt like me. And as I was trying all these things, it was kind of like I was just looking at bodybuilding and the competitors and the lifestyle and the work ethic that goes into it and just kind of admiring it from afar, but I never thought that I could do it. Mm-hmm. It was something like, okay, they have a quality or something about them that makes it possible for them to be bodybuilders, and I just don't have the quality. But last year I was like, you know what, forget it, let me just do it. If nothing comes out of it, nothing comes out of it, but at least I gave it a shot, and I just fell in love with it.
So no one introduced you to it, you kind of found it on your own? Or
yeah, I was following a couple of the athletes and just would see the shows they did and watch a couple of the shows on the live feeds, but no one actually kind of just got me into it. I just always admired it, but never actually been with it.
Yeah. Now, are there other bodybuilders at your at your gym? At your gym, is there other bodybuilders?
Yes. I go to a local private gym, so pretty much everyone there is either a bodybuilder or a powerlifter. Okay. So as of right now, there are a couple, at least there's 2 people that I know of who are also getting ready for the same show I'm getting ready for. And then there are a couple of others who are getting ready to start prep for the Baltimore Gladiator, which is the biggest show in March in our area.
Okay. So they're already preparing for next March, or was it postponed?
As of right now, it's still on for next March.
Okay.
So we're getting ready to start their prep for that one, because I believe it's either the 2nd or the 3rd week of March that the Baltimore Gladiator is usually held.
So probably right after the Arnold.
Yeah, it's usually right after the Arnold, since the Arnold is usually the 1st week of March.
Yeah, the Arnold I feel is the kickoff to our shows.
The season, yes.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think. I really don't think there's any other shows that's before the end of February that I can recall.
For NPC, no. I know OCB does some in January, but for NPC, it's definitely the Arnold. This year, but COVID.
Well, it's interesting how there's those 2 months that are dead months. You know what exactly. I mean? So if you ever wanted to start, I feel like if you started a prep probably October or November, you'd be doing a long prep probably.
Yeah, my first show, we started the day before Christmas.
Really? Okay.
So I prepped through all of Christmas, all of January, went to the Arnold for the first time with my bag of food, and I'm trying to find a place in the corner where I can sit and eat to make sure I get all my meals in. Going to the Powerhouse gym over there just to get my morning cardio in and my lifts in, just to go back to the expo. So it was definitely interesting starting prep around the holidays for my first show.
That's really that's a lot for a first time commit.
It is. And my coach at the time did ask, she was like, are you sure you want to start prep during the holidays? I was like, yes, let's just do it. Because originally I wanted to do the Gladiator as my first show, but we ended up having to push it back to a summer show because I needed more time to lean out.
Yeah, especially for your first show. Now, you agree with that? As a first-time competitor, I feel like we all want to rush, right?
Yes.
But in reality, you should give yourself a good year. If you wanted to do a show now, I would say maybe next September. You know what I mean? You agree.
There's nothing wrong with taking more time to get ready. there's shows on all year round. So if you can't do a show in the summer, you can do a show in the fall. If you can't do a show in the fall, just do one next year. Just take as much time as you need to actually build the foundation and lean down and be as conditioned as you can possibly be before going on stage. Because there's nothing worse than knowing, or rather going on stage and knowing that you could have done more, but you didn't because you were just rushing to get up there. So there's nothing wrong with just taking more time. And actually with the 2 shows that I'm getting ready for right now, I just had a talk with my coach today with this prep, and each prep is always different. So just because you had a really good prep one time doesn't mean you're going to consistently always have a good prep. Mm-hmm. So from like the moment we started prep, it was just always like one thing on top of another, on top of another. And then just when we think we finally got it, another setback. So we had a talk today, and I was telling her, like, so if I'm not ready in 8 weeks for the Halloween show or 9 weeks for the November show, we're going to push it back. She's like, if you're not looking conditioned in 3 weeks, we're pushing it back. I'm okay with that, because I'd rather take longer than just rush up there and have the judges tell me what I already know, which is you should have come in more conditioned. You should have just, taken a little bit more time to either build or lean out.
Mm-hmm. So that was your feedback at your first show then?
Yeah, that was my feedback from my first show, is I needed to come in more conditioned. They said I had my posing down. So I'm like, okay, that's one thing in my corner, but this should have come in a little bit more conditioned, which is why I placed low. And going into it, like backstage and seeing all the other athletes that I was going to go up on stage, I just automatically knew. Because I got taken a year off to build, and I took advantage of all like the free posing clinics, the workshop with the judges, trying to like gather as much information as I could. And that was kind of one of the things that they always said, one of the criteria to look for specifically in figure is you have to be a bit more conditioned than bikini. Mm-hmm. So in there and looking at the other athletes, I just already knew that I probably wasn't going to place as well, but I had already worked so hard and I was just going to enjoy the experience. And I made so many friends.
Yeah. Oh,
backstage that when the inevitable placing came, I was like, you know what? I totally agree. And I will work on that.
Mm-hmm. Now, for a first show too, it's hard when you want to win because you work hard and everything, but in the back of your head, you're like, hey, a lot of these girls also going on stage, this might be their like 5th show or something. Like, think about the time that they've put in, and that's for anybody, It's
exactly.
Like, it's all about mindset.
Experience to other people's experience. Everyone's prep is different. You don't know what they're dealing with or how long they've been doing this. Because just because I took a year to build, somebody could have taken 2-3 years to build before doing it. And just because that's their first show and it's my first show doesn't mean that our preps were equal, or even our off season that were equal. Mm-hmm. So definitely just focus on your process and doing that the best that you can do. And that's really what I took from that and what I'm still applying now. It's just focus on me, be the best me, and work as hard as I possibly can, and focus on anyone else.
Hey, bodybuilding is a selfish sport.
It is, you really do.
So much so. You like what you said, you have to focus on yourself to really like give it your all. Like if you're putting a lot of your life into this, so it's going to be all of it. It's your food, exactly. Your training, it's how you schedule your day. And that's why we love it. It's like our routine. So
yes,
I understand.
I love the structure of it. And I also love the community and the camaraderie of everyone in the bodybuilding. Like, I don't know about where you're at, but there's the bodybuilding community in Virginia. There's one here in Maryland. There's one in Pennsylvania, West Virginia. And it's like, just because we're in different states, it's like you'll meet someone in a gym who knows someone in another state. And it's like, I know that person too. So even though it's like a big community, we're all kind of small at the same time. And I just love that.
Yes. And that goes for our pros too. Do you ever realize like the pros are famous to us? Yes. Pros not going to know who like half of these pros are. And like you meet these people and you're just like, oh my gosh, like you like start the fangirl, like you just, met Brad Pitt or something. You're like,
oh, the first time I met Sid was at the Arnold, and it was by complete chance. I was going back to the car to get my last meal because I didn't bring it in with me. And I'm just walking by one of the booths and I turn around and there she is. And I'm holding my wallet and my keys in one hand and my bag in another because I just purchased something. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Sid. And I just rushed to her.
Like, drop everything.
Life. Exactly. And she was just so warm and welcoming and she hugged me. Didn't realize in the process I dropped my wallet. So her boyfriend picks it up, well, now fiance, picks it up and gives it to me. I was just fangirling so hard. And then when I told my friends when I came back, they're like, who? I'm like, Sid, 3-time Miss Figure Olympia. And they're like, you wouldn't understand.
You don't understand, but I'm freaking out right now. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
I've done that.
To us, it's a big deal, but like to everyone else, it's kind of like, oh, it's just a regular person. I'm like, yeah, regular person that does amazing things.
Right. It's just our athletes. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, that's our like quarterbacks.
Pretty much.
And they are so nice because, you know, you would hope that they realize like, yes, we're fans. And like we said, you're not super famous, but to us you are. So at least they're usually humbling for the most part. All the, you know, pros and really, you know, Insta famous people I've met, they come off as friendly, you know.
The ones I've met have been really courteous and kind. And even the ones that I've sent like, you know, good luck on your show on Instagram through their DMs have just responded back like, thank you. They don't have to do that, but the fact that they're just so humble and just nice about it, it just goes to show that they're just regular people and they do understand like, yeah, somebody out there does look up to me, so I am going to acknowledge that. And it's just really nice when they're not stuck up.
Yeah, right.
That's always your fear, that you're going to meet your idol and it's going to not be the expectation that you thought it was going to be.
Right. You feel like awkward or like that you shouldn't
exactly.
be talking to them.
Was I talking too much? Should I have done that? I was exactly thinking about that afterwards. I'm like, I probably shouldn't have bum rushed her and hugged her like I knew her.
Yeah. You're like, well, I'm just going to let it happen, you know?
Exactly. Like, well, nobody tackled me, so I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. Or you like think too much into it. You're like, what am I going to ask them? And then like, I've been where like, you know how the Arnold is. It's just so like, there's so much going on. And there's been times where I see someone who I really want to like say hi to or just get like a couple minute conversation. And like, maybe they're talking to somebody else. So you just kind of have to like, keep like circling like the same booth to try to like wait for this person to quit talking. Like, so I'm not a stalker right now.
Do you wonder sometimes, like, did they notice me doing laps?
Yeah. I'm literally like, I don't know what to do. Like, I remember that happened to me too with my own coach who like at the time that she wasn't, but I remember like I knew she was there and like she was at this booth and there were other people. And then at the same time, I'm like, well, what am I even going to like ask her? What am I going to like talk to? How am I going to approach her? So I just kept like kind of standing by a pole for a little bit. Like, you know, the meme where it's like the guy that's Shaq's like looking through a tree branch or something. Yeah. That's it.
Oh yeah. That was definitely me with a couple of other booths. Cause Shanique Grant was there too.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Double whammy.
Yeah, so she was demonstrating one of the grips that they had, and I'm like, should I go? No, can't interrupt her while she's demonstrating. Should I just lean back? And then, you know what? I've been awkwardly standing here for too long. I'm just gonna go.
Yeah, and then you regret it so bad. Like, okay, so yesterday I went to
feeds, and I'm like, she was taking pictures after that. I should have just waited a little longer.
I've done that. You're like,
next Arnold, if it doesn't get canceled.
I know, we were supposed to go together. What?
Yes, we. Yep. Cancellation. I'm just glad we at least got the hotel money back.
I was surprised. I was honestly getting ready.
Had you bought your tickets or not yet?
I didn't get them because I was going to work the booth. And when I work the booth, I always get the free pass because I work a booth. And yeah, I actually had a meet and greet ticket that I didn't get to use. And then other than that, in the hotel, I was thankful that I didn't really spend that much money other than on those two things. But
yeah, I feel bad for the people who bought their tickets and spent money on the hotels that told them it's non-refundable. Because like at least they just said you're gonna lose your deposit, but you can get your money back for the nights. And I had bought my tickets. I was gonna buy my tickets when I got there. I'm glad I didn't at least lose out on that.
Right. Yeah. Cause then it would have been like, the meet and greet actually was a Christmas present for me. So, but I was like, that's wasteful. Like I would have loved to
Did
use
you
that.
get to use that next Arnold, or was it just for
No,
this?
cause they ended up having it.
Oh yeah, that's right. They did
I'm
after.
like, I'm not driving out there without a hotel.
Then no spectators, then okay, family members. They ended up having it, and I forgot whose feed I was watching, but they were at the expo and there were people there. I'm like,
I know. It was so confusing because back in March, they literally like, they didn't know. What's that?
Could you imagine competing at the Arnold during the chaos?
Yeah, there was.
I give
no
it up
audience.
to the athletes.
Yeah,
Especially the ones who had to fly in.
I feel bad. That's like that would have been so stressful to be flying over and be like, is my show going on? Like, should I be freaking out, or how, like, because you know how stress levels are when you're prepping. So I mean, half those girls were probably watery as hell on stage, and I'd be upset.
I could only imagine. My food scale died earlier this afternoon, and I was panicking because I couldn't weigh my food. I had to go buy batteries just to replace it. Now imagine not knowing if your show is gonna happen or not happen, and you're on a to your
That's
show.
just true. How would we, like? Why do we do this to ourselves? I'm out of batteries. How did we end up here?
Honestly, I get that question sometimes because, like, right now I'm 8 weeks out for my first show this year, and I'm just my energy is low because, like, my food is low. I'm just in there to get my workout in and my cardio. I don't have it in me to have a conversation or put a smile on my face, so I just genuinely look miserable. And everyone is like, why are you doing it? You just look so miserable right now. And it's like, because I love it.
Yeah. I mean,
I look like it right now, but I do love it.
That's the thing about prep too. It's literally like, I'm not trying to complain because I do love this, but it's just, you end up realizing you are kind of complaining a lot. Like,
I mean, it's like everything else you do in life that you genuinely enjoy or have a passion for, it's not always going to be good. You're definitely going to have some struggles and frustrations along the way. And it's like, just because I talk about the frustrations doesn't mean it overshadows the good parts of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes we just need to vent, you know?
Yes.
Sometimes you just got to let it out and then you feel better. But then to some people, they'll be like, well, then why are you doing it? And it's like, mind your business.
Pretty much. Like, before I took my nap earlier, I was going down the list of like everything I had to do today to my boyfriend, just so I could just get the frustration out. Cause it's like, just got back from training. I didn't prep enough fish for the week. So I got to go to the grocery store and get more fish. And then I got to prep that. And then I got to go do my cardio. And it's just so much. There aren't many hours in the day for all of this. It's like, I just needed to get it out, but still love it.
Yeah. And you still get it done, right?
Exactly.
Make it a priority. Yeah.
Yep.
It's always going to be a priority. Now, does your boyfriend compete?
No, he just lifts consistently, so he understands the lifestyle. Also, his coach is a bodybuilder, so he gets it from both me and his coach. So when I'm like too tired to like go buy food, he usually just gets it for me. Or if I'm complaining, like, I'm too tired, I want to sleep, I don't want to do cardio, and he's like, babe, come on, just get it done. I'm like, okay, I'll go get it done. He understands, and he's very supportive, and I'm lucky enough to have like a great support system around me, because a lot of people don't have that. Either like their family doesn't approve or the friends don't understand. I've been fortunate enough to have like friends who are supportive, and even though my family doesn't kind of get it, they just know like, okay, this is something that Sarah is passionate about, and we're just going to support her because she's passionate about it.
Yeah. It's kind of, I feel like it's really hard to put people down if they're really positive about what they're doing. You know, like no one's going to be like trying to, well, some people do want to shut you down because they see you're happy and maybe they're not. But yeah, you're right. Like, especially with family, like there's no reason to get that mad about it. I mean, you're staying healthy. You're working with a coach that's helping you, right?
And usually I've learned that if you just explain to them what it is you're doing, they understand better. Because if you just tell them I'm doing bodybuilding, they just go based off of like the general information they've heard about bodybuilding. They're like, oh, those people are too lean. Are you sure it's healthy to be, that low in body fat? And it's like, you tell them like, look, you're only that lean for maybe like a week or a few days leading up to your show and after your show. It's not something you sustain year round. And you're working with a coach who's hopefully knowledgeable enough about the industry and has the experience to know how to prep you in a healthy way.
Right.
So I'm not endangering myself just because you've heard somebody had a bad experience about it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's going to happen to me. And when I told them that, they were like, okay, so she's done her due diligence to know what she's getting herself into. So they felt more relaxed and were able to just be more supportive because they knew a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. And who's your coach?
My coach is Stacy Wigg. She's local. So she trains mainly out of Columbia, Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
That's about 40 to an hour drive, depending on which way I go, because I'm more closer to DC and she's more closer to Baltimore. So usually, well, before COVID, every Saturday, I would go up there, train with her, do my posing sessions. And then Monday through Saturday, I would just train out of my gym. But with COVID and gyms having their own restrictions and like whether they'll allow non-members to work out or if doing day passes or no day passes, it's been rather interesting figuring it out.
Okay, so are you guys doing mostly online then right now, which is kind of new?
I mainly train by myself, but when she does have a studio available, she'll let me know like, hey, I'm going to be at this location at this time. Are you available to train? And usually if I can rearrange my schedule, I'll try to make it. Because I try to stay consistent with training with her and posing with her. Because you can train and pose by yourself and you get into routine. And then when you go, at least for me, when I train with her, sometimes I realize like, okay, this is the level of intensity I should be at. And I'm kind of like right here. So I need to bump myself back up to there. And then with posing too, it's certain habits that I've overcome. If I don't practice enough, I fall back into those old habits. So it's good to see her consistently. So that way she can, just tweak my posing and say like, okay, you're not rotating enough. This is an issue we had the last time. Remember to stretch so you can improve your lower back flexibility, so you can arch better. So I just like to try and get as much training and one-on-one with her as I can, but it's kind of limited with COVID.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And is this who you were working with for your first show?
No, I was with a different coach for my first show. My first show's coach is in New York and it was all virtual.
Okay.
And with that, I learned like, I work better hands-on. So it would be more beneficial for me to find somebody who's local. Mm-hmm. And Stacy was actually my posing coach for my first show. So when that one was over, I just asked her if she was taking on any new clients and she was, so I just signed up with her. Yep.
That works out perfect. And that's actually
yes, it does.
Different because I feel like a lot of new people go more local, then move on to like online. Like that's kind of what I did, but that's interesting that you did the opposite.
I did the opposite. Yeah. Mm-hmm. My first coach came highly recommended in a Facebook group I was in, because before I decided like fully give bodybuilding 100%, I joined this bodybuilding group on Facebook just to kind of get a general idea of like what to expect. So it had new competitors, it had experienced competitors, so you had like amateurs and pros all in this group together. And she came highly recommended. So I was like, you know what, let me just go with her. Everybody, looked through her testimonials from her clients, looked through her training background and decided to just go down that route. And it was great. But again, sometimes it's not that, you had a bad experience with a coach. Sometimes you just learn like, I learned better if it's one-on-one versus virtually. And some people just don't need that much, hands-on or one-on-one. They can do everything virtually and just be fine with it. So I learned like, this might work for someone else. It doesn't necessarily work for me. And she was very understanding about it. So that's when I just switched over to a local coach. Yeah.
Well, that's good because you really do learn a lot with hands-on. I feel like I've had a lot in my past with several different people, and you really can learn from each person that you do work with. So even if you had that online person, you learned a few things and you learned what not to do. And then you go to this hands-on person And you're right, like posing for sure. It is really nice to have someone there to just pose with you. Like I like
Yes.
that we can pose with like whoever now with like FaceTime and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but there's just something about someone being right there in front of you, or even if they can like lift your shoulders up, like they can actually be there to like lift
Yes,
your shoulders up for you kind of thing. I don't know what it is. It's just
it does. Cause like one of my very first posing sessions with Stacy. She was telling me like when you do the side presentation pose, she was like, put your shoulder on a shelf. I'm like, what does put your shoulder on a shelf mean? And
just
she
move it.
put my shoulder in the position she was referring to, and I understood what she meant. So like sometimes you just need that hands on for it to click, that mind muscle connection. It helps when somebody actually like touches where you're supposed to be flexing or puts you in the position you're supposed to be in, like if it's just rotating because you're not rotating enough, or pushing it back because you're over rotating and now you're missing the S curve. So it just helps to have that one-on-one. And usually that's what I try to tell people. Like if you're gonna do posing for like the very first time, try to do a one-on-one with like a local coach.
Mm-hmm.
So you can like drive to and have that one-on-one experience with. And then if you want to just go online after that, that's totally up to you.
Mm-hmm. You're right. Yeah, because posing's, it's different. And you're right about the mind muscle connection. Because I've actually like, it's usually like my guy friends I have to help, but like sometimes I'm like, how much wider can we get your lats? And I literally like have to grab their lats and be like, pull more.
Exactly. It's like your lats could be wider because they've gotten wider before. So just keep going. And I'm like, I don't know how much wider I can make my lats.
Yeah, sometimes you're like, what if I touch them?
It's like, oh, you missed.
Will they grow more?
Exactly.
And then you try to like relax their shoulders and then widen them out, you know, and sometimes you just,
why is it that when you try to widen your lats, like your shoulders go with it too? It's like, no, shoulders, I need you to stay where you're at, and lats.
Get wider.
Not taller.
Right. And you're just like, you got to relax. You got to breathe. And
it's a lot that goes into posing that people don't realize. You have to flex and look relaxed at the same time.
And breathe.
Breathe.
It's so hard when you got to breathe. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and I tend to breathe through my stomach and not my chest. So I'm just here with like, no waist. Now I got a waist.
Yeah, and you're like trying to hold it in too.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was bringing up your show pictures.
Oh, my show pictures.
Look at you. That's a pretty blue suit.
Yes, I loved that color.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stick with the same suit.
What's that?
I'm going to stick with the same suit because I got compliments on that color.
Yeah, I like it. You look good in the blue. That's a thing. Like sometimes people pick the wrong suit color there for, I mean, I went with like bright green for my first suit. So then I learned I look good in green, but it was the shade of green that you have to play with.
And that's the other thing that people don't realize too. It's not necessarily the color, it's the shade of color that you pick.
Yes. And I like that you have like the complementary like silver going on in here.
Yes. I stuck with the blue and silver theme. Like even with my jewelry, I just went with silver.
Oh, I see. So this show was July 7th.
Yes.
Okay.
And it was supposed to happen this year, but it got canceled and moved to October. So I'm actually doing the same show I did last year, this year.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, because it got postponed. Okay. And what date is that going to be?
It's going to be October 31st. So it's right on Halloween.
Oh, Halloween. Yeah, you were saying.
Yes.
Wow.
And then
fun.
the Max Muscle is November 7th.
November 7th.
Yeah.
And where's that one at?
That one's in Virginia. It's in Woodbridge, Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you'll do one in Fulton, Maryland, and one in Virginia.
Pretty much.
Hey, that's not bad. Now, do you see a lot of the same people at both those shows from last year? Well, I guess since you've only done one show, but were they local people?
They were all local people. Like the people, even though it was my first show, I kind of knew at least maybe 5 or 6 of them because I attended shows prior to this. Like first bodybuilding show that I saw was the Baltimore Gladiator, I think in 2018. Mm-hmm. And just attended some more local shows after that just to kind of see what it was going to be like from the audience's perspective. So when I at least went up there, I kind of knew what to expect. Like, okay, so this is going to be like the general layout of how they're going to run the show. So I saw familiar faces. So like, oh, you competed in this show. I was in the audience when you were up on stage. So you tend to see familiar faces, especially when you're competing in a lot of local shows. But with COVID, I don't know how many people are actually competing this year, because I know a lot of people who were in prep for shows just decided to just take this whole year off and just treat it as a off season to just build some more and just pick up next year when shows are maybe a little bit more reliable, because they know like it is gonna happen. Because I know at least with the Maryland Championship, it was supposed to be earlier this year, but because they were shutting down and limiting how many people could gather, they just moved it to the end of the year. And then some shows that are being held at high schools, those high schools don't want their auditoriums being used as event spaces, so they're pulling out. So now the promoters have to find a new venue to hold the competition, if they are going to hold the competition. So a lot of that inconsistency, a lot of my bodybuilding friends just said, like, you know what, I can't deal with that level of inconsistency and unsurety during prep when I'm working against a deadline. But if the deadline keeps getting moved, how do I know if I'm on target or not on target? So they were just like, you know what, 2020 is just going to be an off season. I'm like,
I went to a show yesterday. So the local Pittsburgh shows that are usually like really close to where I live. So they actually had to move it to another county. So they went up north.
Oh, okay.
So outside of Pittsburgh, they were like, we got to move it up. And like, it was like an hour away. And it was just at this like small, like almost looked like a club almost, like, you know what I mean? Like a lodge of some sort. And it was interesting. Let's just say that. And there was a lot more people than you'd think. Like, as in like, they were like, I feel like they wanted you to wear a mask. Like they said that you should, but nobody really was. And then like, you could tell that when the show first started, there was a lot of people in the audience, and you didn't think there would be. Like, I was standing against the wall. I'm in the back standing against the wall. There was no seats, you know, they were like
all filled up, or
every seat was taken. You know, you got like all the competitors like over against this other wall. You had like 6 vendors behind. Like, I was standing in front of a vendor booth. And I mean, I'm glad that people want to go back to shows, and I'm glad I could go to one. But at the same time, it's, you know, with North Americans next week, they're already like, well, they don't have any time to move it again, so they're going to have to keep it in Pittsburgh. No audience, and it's even outdoors.
What if it rains?
Right. What if it rains? Like, I mean, there's tents.
Can't hold up to that.
Yeah, and then it's at the point where it's like, do you guys even need to go outside? Like, are you going to move it back in if there's like an official?
I mean, if they're not going to have any spectators, why not just have it indoors and then just limit it to the athletes?
Right. I mean, unless there's like that many athletes, because
that they can't have it. Okay.
Yeah, that's the thing too. I'm like, well, I know it's one division per like day, or no, not really. It's more like it'll be like masters and bikini on Wednesday, and figure and bodybuilding and physique and wellness on Thursday. But like, still, like, there's a lot of people that do those shows because it's a national show and everyone's their pro card. But I don't know. It's just like, oh, so stressful.
I thought they were moving it to Orlando.
Yeah, the teen collegiate.
Oh, that's the one that got moved. Okay.
Yeah, it got moved to Orlando, which I guess move it to Florida. Everybody wants to move.
Florida's making a lot of money. The New York Pro got moved there. Now this national shows get moved there. It's like, okay, Florida.
Yeah, and like they tried doing the whole masks. Like they did masks for comparison rounds. But
that's what I'm curious about. I was told for my shows that we would have to wear masks, not when we're doing our presentation, but when they're doing the comparisons, would have to wear masks. So I'm interested how that's gonna work out.
I think everybody's like throwing their mask like backstage, probably like with like the pump up bands.
Yeah.
And like when they have to go off real quick, they throw it on and then get back on stage for.
Yeah. It's definitely going to be an interesting year to do a competition.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm curious to see how everything is going to be set up, how backstage is going to be, how they're actually going to run the show. Are they going to still allow spectators or just cancel it altogether? Because right now they are saying that we I think it's like 100 or 150 spectators are allowed at a time, but that could change.
Right.
It's still 9-8 weeks out. That could totally change.
Yeah, like that's what happened with North Americans. They said the limit was 50 and then they changed it to 100. But then I think they expected more than that. I thought, because like to me, that's what I thought too. I thought the limit was 150. So to hear that it was 50 and now 100, I'm like, well, that was completely wrong. I'm like, I can't keep track. I feel bad. I'm not competing this year.
Yes. Are you still gonna do the Arnold?
What I want to do. What I'm thinking, because my prep would start at the end of October. So probably when you're doing your first show, I'll be getting ready for mine.
As I'm coming off prep, you're going on.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I'll be like, all right, my turn to suffer.
Is it going to be like your first prep during the holidays, or you've prepped during the holidays before?
Nope. It's going to be my first time. I think I finally made that decision. I was like, I think it's time to suffer through the holidays, because even this past one, my coach, this was like my first off season where like cheat meals was like not a huge thing for me. Mm-hmm. Like I literally like I don't get them that often. I really don't care about.
And that's another misconception, that people think that you get a cheat meal every week or a refeed every week. It's like, no, it just depends on how your body is. This entire prep, I have not gotten a cheat meal because my body has not been responded the way that we had expected. So it's why throw on junk food to further set me back.
And you work a desk job like I do, right?
Yes. So I'm sitting for 8 hours.
Yeah, me too. And it's really hard because I'm like, okay, well, maybe if I was like a FedEx driver and delivering packages and on my feet.
Moving around, getting those steps in.
Yeah, all the RNs. There's so many bodybuilder girls that are RNs and stuff where I'm like, yeah, you're running around. You're probably like stuffing like fish in your like stuffing it down in the bathroom, then going back to the next patient. And I'm like, I'm glad I don't live that lifestyle, but I guess I can see how if you're constantly moving like that, you really don't care about eating, or you don't think about it.
Or you don't have like a set eating schedule like we would since we're sitting down. It's kind of like you have this many meals, you just have to get it in that day. Figure out what you can get it in.
You're cold, you're like looking at the clock, like there's nothing I can do. The clock is in front of my face the entire day.
Exactly. Like at work, it's slightly harder at work than it is at home, because at home it's like, okay, it's in the fridge, I have my timer, I'm just gonna focus here and do my work. But at work it's like I have my lunch bag right here, so I'm just staring at my meals. I'm like, I just ate you, you're next.
Yeah, and you're thinking about that next one, but then you're
already are you eating your meal, you're thinking of the next one. Exactly.
And then you're just like, I'm already thinking about how I'm going to be hungry after I eat that meal.
Exactly. So you just try to drink a lot of water to just like keep yourself full. So now it's like, great, I have to get up every 5 minutes to go to the bathroom.
Right. And then you're like, well, there's my steps for the day.
Yep. Just like walking those like 40 or 50 steps to get to the bathroom and then right back in my seat. Yep. I'm lucky enough that my employer understands what I'm doing. So when when my boss walks in and I'm like stuffing my face with my fish and broccoli, he's like, oh, okay, it's that time for Sarah to eat again. He has a tendency to always show up when I'm eating. And he made a comment like, why are you always eating every time I come in? I'm like, well, you keep showing up every 3 hours, which is when I eat.
Now, was that you that did someone make a timing list?
Yes.
I remember that. Someone like made your schedule and printed it out.
The program director made me a Hobbit schedule. She said, I'm always eating at, because I don't, was it Lord of the Rings?
Yes, it was Lord of the Rings. Yeah,
so she was like, you have first breakfast, second breakfast, 11Zs. And she was like, you're basically a Hobbit. I'm like, yeah, bodybuilders are basically.
We don't go out.
Now that I think about it. So I still have it on my desk. I crossed out the times and they like put my own times on there. But like I thought it was hilarious. And then she put like a little dumbbell on it and a shirt that says, I trained to eat my second breakfast. I'm like, oh, that is so cute.
It's so true. It's perfect.
That is true. That is so true. Very true. But I thought it was hilarious when she sent me that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you're basically eating off a meal plan right now, right?
Yeah, pretty much. My meal got cut down on Sunday, I believe. Yeah, Sunday, because that's when I went to get my food so I could prep it. So my macros are getting lower as I'm getting closer to the show. So right now it's just mainly fish and chicken and vegetables.
Yeah. Whatever you got to do to
Little carbs.
Yes, low. I'm the same way because I don't know what it is with us that it's like I don't know if it's our job or what, but like it's gonna have to be low carb. Like I don't burn enough throughout the day.
Pretty much. The only time I'm actually physically exerting myself is when I'm at the gym lifting and doing my cardio. Other than that, I'm sitting down for 8 hours, 5 days a week. So during that time frame, at most, I'm like maybe getting a couple of 100 steps in. Where somebody who's like has a job where they're constantly moving around, they can hit their 10,000 or 15,000 mark in just their shift. When I was in retail, it was easy to get those steps in because I'm constantly moving around. But having a desk job is just like I gotta make up for it when I get to the gym.
Now, what's your cardio like?
To have a lower carb diet since I'm not exerting that much during the daytime and saving a little bit more for the afternoon when I am at the gym and would need the carbs.
And what's your cardio like then too?
Right now, I'm doing a fasted 30 minutes in the morning, and then I'm doing an additional 30 minutes after training. So an hour.
Right.
Yeah.
It's when it gets up to like 45 2 times a day, or I did that before and I was like, I feel like I live at the gym. I literally
honestly, the gym is pretty much home number 2.
Yeah. I mean, it is.
Work, gym, and then actual home.
Because like you do cardio and then you're like, well, I'm going to go home and like try to sleep because I'll be right back here at like 5 a.m.
Pretty much. Because like I start work at 7:30.
Okay.
Get off at 4 o'clock. And so I have to go in like maybe around 5 a.m. to get my cardio in. So I have enough time to like shower, get dressed, and go to work. And then I go to work and then I'm right back at the gym. And my lifting is usually like an hour, 30 minutes to 2 hours, depending on what I'm doing. Because usually legs takes the longest. So that's when I usually hit that 2 hour mark. And then I still have my cardio to do after that too. So it's like gym, work, back to the gym, now home, repeat.
And you would think you wouldn't think about food that much, but you do. Like,
the only time I don't think about food is when I'm lifting, because at that point it's like my muscles are burning, I'm sweating a lot.
I would probably throw up if I tried to eat.
Pretty much. Yep. And then after you finish cardio, it's like, yeah, it's about time to eat again.
Yeah.
Usually it's like my last meal.
Hold off as long as possible. You know what I mean? Because
I'm trying to, because if I eat too quickly, then it's like I don't go to bed until like 9 o'clock. And I don't want to eat my meal at 7 and have that time frame where I'm not eating anything. So I just try to like hydrate as much as possible and then like eat right before I go to sleep. So that way I can just fall asleep, wake up in the morning, and then it's time to eat again.
I've been actually, because I'm the same way, I have to eat before bed. Yeah. And I feel like sometimes it's been easier now that I've been able to try to fast in the morning longer. Like I usually don't eat until 10 o'clock. Which it does suck when you're in prep because you're so cold and hungry. But like, to be honest, like I would rather have my food so that I could sleep. But I don't know. I don't know about you, but in prep too, it's just hard because you kind of get inside your head before bed. So then sometimes you don't even sleep that good anyways.
Yeah. And it is the same for me. Like I try to hold off until right before I go to bed for my last meal. So that way I can at least go to bed feeling somewhat full. Because if I go to bed hungry, then that's all I'm thinking about. And then I can't get a good rest because I'm thinking about how hungry I am. So just like start my meals a little later, I can still maintain like eat every 3 hours, not have it fall into like my gym time, and then still be able to eat a little later before going to sleep. And then it's been manageable doing it that way, then starting to eat like at 6 o'clock when I do wake up. And then like, okay, now I just finished my meal at 7 and I still got 2 more hours before I go to sleep.
Yeah, I understand. Because like if I ever get like too hungry, I just like eat like spinach. I'm literally like, I don't care. Like sometimes I just need to like put something in my mouth just to satisfy my brain. And I'm like, well, there's like nothing in spinach. Maybe I'll put a little bit of
cucumbers for me. My coach was salt and cucumbers. When you're really hungry to the point where you can't handle it, just to give you something. Yeah, this is usually it. Or just try to keep drinking water. But I try not to drink too much when I'm getting ready to go to sleep, because I'm not trying to wake up in the middle of the night going to the bathroom.
Yeah, because then you're just like hobbling around, and I don't know, like when you're deep in prep, I don't know about you, but my knees hurt. So if you're trying to go to the bathroom,
I haven't gone there yet. Right now, it's like I'm cold a lot. Like I have on my hoodie, I have on fuzzy socks, my sweatpants, because I am just cold.
Right. Like I'm on fire. Like I know I have a hoodie on right now, but I just had a cheat meal. So like, I'm like I get so hot from cheat meals.
Cookie really did look amazing though.
It was so good. Like it was so, it's the steak, it's the protein. And then you
had a good cheat. You had steak and a cookie.
I had the steak and the cookie, and then some udon noodles.
Oh, that's what those were. 'Cause I'm like, those are not regular noodles.
No, those are udon. So their udon, I think, is like a consistency of wheat, but it's like they're not heavy. Like they're almost like rice noodles, so they'll still digest well. But yeah, I just got a small packet of those and was like, well, I already have rice in my plan.
Yeah,
I really like don't feel like making any potatoes right now. So udon noodle it is.
It's funny because like I'll tell people, because like with my first prep, I did have a cheat meal on my birthday because I was prepping through my birthday, and my cheat meal was steak and sweet potatoes. And my friends were like, well, that's what a cheat meal is? I'm like, listen, when you've been eating chicken and a little bit of rice and just plain vegetables for like 10 weeks, that steak and sweet potato tastes amazing.
They just don't understand it's something off of your meal plan.
It's something that you don't normally eat.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Like,
it's enjoyable.
Like people are like, sushi, that's like kind of healthy. And I'm like, maybe to you.
But it's not on my plan.
Right. I was like, I can't just go get sushi any day of the week. Sorry.
And that's the other thing that people usually don't understand. It's like, just because we go out doesn't mean I can order a salad or something off the menu. It's like, it's got to be weighed. Sometimes they put, dressing on the salad, especially when you're in prep and you're working against that deadline. You really do have to be conscious of like how many macros you're consuming versus how much you're expending, because to make sure you're not eating more than you're burning up. Yeah.
Did you ever go through a phase where like binging or anything? I know a lot of competitors talk about having some sort of binge eating issue. It sounds like from the start you've had healthy habits.
It was easier for me because I already had that foundation when I first started. After my first show, I did know, or rather, a couple of people were like, just be aware, there are the post-show blues where you binge afterwards. And I was good for like the first 3 months after my show. And then the holidays came. From Thanksgiving until New Year's, all I did was eat. So like, cause I'm African, so my sister flew in from Nairobi and she was like, I am going to do all the cooking this entire holiday season. And I'm like, yes, please do. And our dishes are mainly carb-based. So it was a lot of carbs from November to January. And it got to a point where Stacey was like, whoa, Sarah, we need to will that back in if you're gonna jump into prep. So I had to reestablish those like healthy eating habits, because I just became so accustomed to like eating as much rice as I wanted. If I wanted to, eat a cookie or get some Snickers, I could just go to the gas station or go to Harris Teeter and buy some. If I wanted Pringles, I could eat the Pringles. My entire routine of like having a structured meal was just completely tossed out the window for the holidays. So it's just a matter of like, okay, I did it before, I can do it again, just got to rein it back in.
Right. And that's what it takes. It's like, you just got to get that discipline ramped back up. And then it sounds like you were more on the flexible side. It doesn't sound like you were binge eating. It was more like,
I enjoyed my off season a little too much.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. Which when you're a first time competitor, I feel like everyone goes through it. So it's normal.
Because you're experience something you've never experienced before, because usually when you're hungry, you eat. But when you're in prep and you have a set of meals and you've eaten them all, you can't just eat.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta endure that a little bit. So when you're a first-time competitor, it's something that you just kind of have to try to get used to. And that's when the whole mentality and dedication comes into it. It's like, you can cheat on your diet if you wanted to, but if you think about the amount of time you've spent in the gym and the amount of cardio sessions you've had to get you to where you are and how close you are to the finish line, is that cheat meal really worth it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, chances are, depending on like how crazy you go, it might not undo the work, but you're still going to have that guilt of knowing that, you know what, I made it this far and I caved this to the end.
Yeah. It just keeping the routine strong. I mean,
and talk to your coach when it gets hard. Sometimes it's just like, hey coach, I am struggling here, which is what I did. And she was like, if it gets really bad, those cucumbers and salt will get you through. And I'm like, cucumbers and salt, got it.
And that's so important about having a coach that you can talk to.
Mm-hmm.
I've been there, done that. You know what I mean? With a hard coach. And then when you finally like meet the person who's, I mean, because you have a female coach, I have a female coach, and I'll tell you what, I mean, you don't have to have a female coach, but it just, there's a little bit more emotion and caring and compassion behind the females that I've noticed.
And also if they understand, because they're females too, so they understand what your body is going through, like if it's hormonal or certain other aspects of prep, they kind of understand it a little bit better. That's the other reason why I was like, you know what, I'm gonna stick with a female coach, only because I feel like they would understand. Not saying that male coaches wouldn't, I just feel like having a female coach would just make my prep a little easier for me. Yeah.
I feel like we've talked a lot about mistakes almost that we've like made in prep. Is there any other like advice that you would want to give like a new person if someone was like, hey, I want to do a show? Like, what would you want to say?
Actually, do your research before you jump into it, because it's a lot. Bodybuilding is not just go to the gym, get muscles, do cardio, jump on stage. There's a lot more that goes into it before you actually get to the stage process. So like, one, figure out what federation you want to do. So if you want to do NPC, OCB, each federation has their own set of guidelines. So do your research, figure out which route you want to go. And then once you figure out which federation, then start looking into it. Like, you know, what division do I want to do? What do they look for in that division? So when I first decided that I wanted to do bodybuilding, I posted my, front, side, back picture on the platform and asked, what would you guys recommend? And a lot of people were like, bikini. Your current body structure is bikini. You should just start off in bikini. But my heart was dead set on figure. So I'm like, okay, so I don't want to do bikini. What do I have to do to get to figure? And a couple of the pros on there and the coaches on the platform said, listen, if you really want to do figure, you have to be ready to devote the time to build what they're looking for in figure. You need the lats, you need the shoulders, you need definition in your legs. So I knew like, okay, if I really want to do figure, I need to take the time to build what they're looking for in figure. So that's the other thing, like try and educate yourself on like whatever division you choose to go into, what they're looking for in that. And then take advantage of like all the posing clinics and workshops that they're always having all year round. Usually it's either a promoter has it or a local judge has it, or one of the local pros or athletes is having some kind of like posing clinic. Just take advantage of it as much as you can, because it's never too early to start to learn how to pose.
Right.
So the sooner you can hone your craft, the easier it's gonna be later on, because if you can just get the foundation there, then you can just tweak little things in between. But if you start later on, then it's just a whole set of things that you had to learn. Because like before bodybuilding, I rarely wore heels. So I had to learn how to walk in heels.
And that's a whole other skill set. I've always been good, but I've seen girls, I'm like, oh, you really?
No, you know that gif of like the baby giraffe trying to like stand? That was me, because like I spent my entire life in like sneakers, Converse, or flip-flops. So now I had to like walk in heels and look like I've been walking in heels my whole life. So that was like the first step, is like, first, walk in heels like a normal person. Now let's learn how to pose in heels. So the sooner you can start learning how to do these things, the better. And then the sooner you can start training and building the foundation, the easier it's going to be when you actually do start prep. So just take your time, especially with like the new competitors, just take your time learning and absorbing as much information as you can, and like really building the physique you want to present on stage, and like perfecting your posing, and like getting your diet and discipline in check. And when you have all of that, then look at shows, because there are shows happening all year round, from March to December, if you really want to travel all over the United States. Because like I know in Texas there's a December show.
Yes.
So,
well, with the Olympia moved to December, there's like a Christmas show. I mean, yeah, there's always
shows all year round. So you can pick a show anytime. The stage isn't going anywhere. But
exactly,
if you want to either excel in this sport or really bring the best package you can, really take the time.
Right, and you can't rush the process.
No, you can. There's nothing wrong with just taking a little bit of time. Because like even with this prep, it's like if I need more time, I'm perfectly fine extending my prep.
Right. Yes.
Because
and
I just come in with the best package I could possibly bring, than go in with a subpar physique just because I was really trying to get on stage.
Yeah, everything's a learning process. Learn your body.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
That's what I should have done my first show. I should have taken a little bit more time, but I jumped the gun, paid for everything, which is non-refundable. That's the other thing you have to remember. It's non-refundable. So, well, I already paid for it, so I might as well just go up there. And the judges told me exactly what I knew. I just needed a little bit more time.
Yeah, but at least you got to do it and you had fun.
Getting that experience.
Yeah, and all it probably did was put a more of a fire under your ass, where you're like,
it really did. It really did. Yeah. And it definitely made me realize, like, was posing, because I was 100% convinced that, you know, I had my posing down. But then you go up there and sometimes you're holding those poses for what feels like a full minute. Mm-hmm. It's like, this is something that I did not do, is practice holding my poses. Right. Like, I didn't transition through and it's like, okay, I know how to hit my poses, but actually holding them was something I had not been practicing. So that's something else I learned, but just going on stage, which in the end, I'm glad I went through it. Even though I didn't place as well as I wanted, I still learned, like, you know what, there's always room to improve. Now, you know, not only do you need to come in more conditioned, practice holding your poses a little longer.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. And even yesterday we were talking about that pro show in Savannah.
Yeah.
That show, like, I could tell they were really making those girls work. They really had to hold a pose, and some of them.
When everyone is so conditioned and shredded, sometimes you just have to hold those poses so they can see, like, okay, who's gonna let go, what is off about somebody, just so they can figure out, like, who's gonna be in, like, the first call out and who's gonna come in first place. Like, when everyone's physique is, like, damn near close to perfection, sometimes you just have to hold those poses because they're having a hard time figuring out who's gonna get it.
They're like, who's got the flaw? Let's just keep holding.
Exactly. At that point, that's all they're looking for. It's like, okay, where are the flaws?
Yeah. Okay. Who's won't stop
your poses?
Yeah, because the girls, I mean, there were like I think 36 girls or something in yesterday's show, or some high number like that, and it's like,
yeah, I think so.
That's a lot of girls. I mean, because that's another thing I don't think a lot of people realize. Like, once you become a pro, you are just thrown in the mix. There are no height classes. There's no novice. There's no none. You're pro. You're doing a pro show with all the other pros.
Yep. So with more experience under the belt than you do.
Oh yeah, and these girls, they come to win, and then you really see who's got the genetics.
Yep. Because like when you've made it to the pro level, everyone is putting in 100%.
Oh yeah, they're living that life, man.
Exactly.
Living it.
So you have to be prepared to like hold your own up there.
Yeah, right. You're literally like, well,
I had a hard time telling like who was gonna be first call out, because I'm like, oh man, everyone is like super conditioned.
Right. And then they pick it, and you're just like,
And then you try to find what is it about them that made them be center stage or first call out.
Yeah, sometimes you can tell, but sometimes like you can really
Sometimes it's
tell, like
hard.
very like you could tell it's like a judge's preference, because I'll see girls where I'm like, that girl looks really good, but she didn't even make the top 5. And then you start like really looking like, okay, well, this girl's just kind of like skinnier, or maybe she's got like blonde hair, or small.
It's a subjective sport.
Yes.
And sometimes it just depends on like who the head judge is and what aesthetic they're looking for.
Because I see some girls, they're huge. They're like, they have huge muscles, big shoulders, but then they don't place well. Because that's when you realize they're not really rewarding like who's got the biggest muscle. It's just who's got that head to toe shape, like who look proportionate. Because there are some girls where I'm like, wow, she's huge. How is she not in the first call out? And you're like, well, I guess if you look at this girl who's a little bit smaller, just overall her balance is just normal looking.
Yeah. So sometimes it's like, okay, her waist is a little bit more smaller than the other one who has a little bit of a wider waist, even though she has bigger lats.
Right.
Defined shoulder caps.
And that's where it's like, when I go to the gym, I think about these girls with their muscles and their legs. And then sometimes it's like, no, like you really don't have to go into the gym trying to, like, you want to build muscle, but there's always like that, you don't need to be the biggest.
Yeah.
Get that out of your head. It's like, don't have to go in there thinking you're going to walk out of there like a huge bodybuilder. You know what I mean?
And especially when you've been doing it like long enough and you've started to like learn how your body responds, it's like building muscle is not as easy as you think. So just because you see these girls who are jacked, don't assume that it's just going to be you in like 2-3 years. It's like, these people have been doing this for like a while. Like Sid was an athlete before she even started bodybuilding.
Yes. Track. I was like, there's where those legs come from.
Man, no wonder your legs are that good.
You're a sprinter, man. You have like those like
exactly sprinter legs, those thunder thighs.
Yeah. And then you grow up and you're like, well, I guess I can't change anything about that now. I didn't do it in high school. I wasn't a runner. So.
Yeah. I swear, sometimes I do get those thoughts. It's like you have all these like young pros who started like when they were like 17 or 18, and now they're like in their early 20s and they're pros. I'm like, man, if I had that discipline and dedication at their age, I might be at their level. Maybe.
Right. Maybe if in college I like didn't go to art school.
If I hadn't quit track halfway through the season, I would have some decent legs right now.
Like all these regrets, but hey, what can you do?
Exactly. But you learn.
Yes, you do. You have fun with it. You can build what you can, and
learn some things along the way, meet some cool people. All around, it's just a fun experience.
It is, especially the people you meet. Backstage is a lot of fun.
Yep. It really, oh man, backstage is a blast. Bodybuilding is not just, going to the gym, eating your meals and going on stage. It's also like the people and the experiences and the memories you honestly make along the way. I have made more friends the last year and a half because of bodybuilding than I probably made from like college till after college. Because like you meet so many people from like different backgrounds and you just share this one passion, and it's like a icebreaker, and then you just like learning about each other, and it's like now you have new friends.
Right. And a lot of us bodybuilders are kind of antisocial for the most part. Some. And then when they open up to you, it's like they want to be your friend because they're like, I don't really like relate with anybody. So you're one
of my closest friends, Ingrid. The only reason why we even like became friends was because I was at Gold's Gym. I was like, in my mindset focus, trying to get like my back workout in. I turn over and she's doing her front pose. So I'm like, is she figure? So like I waited until she finished her workout and I just go up to her. I'm like, hey, I noticed you posing. Like, are you getting ready for a competition? Now here we are like maybe a year later and we talk like every single day. All because I noticed her doing a front pose.
Yeah. And you're like, hey.
Conversation starter.
I know that life.
Yeah.
We relate. Well, Sarah, I've had you on for over an hour. So
oh, wow.
I can tell that we could just talk. But I know you're going to have to we have to get ready for work tomorrow.
Yeah, we do. I'm going into the office, so I got to get my stuff ready and go to sleep.
Right. I'll let you get that meal in. I know right now, at least I distracted you for an hour.
Exactly. I didn't have to think about it for an hour. Now I can enjoy it and go sleep.
Well, I'm going to wish you best of luck for your show. And then maybe we can do or something around the holidays and do like a post-show thing if you do both your shows. And I hope that they happen.
Same. But, you never know.
You really don't.
Might get canceled or I might have to push it a little longer, but we'll see.
But hey, we can talk about that because sometimes you have to reset your mind and people learn from that.
Yeah.
So when's your birthday?
March 19th, 1990.
Ooh.
Yep. So, I am a Pisces.
Yeah.
And let's see. Yeah, my birthday was like right when quarantine like really got bad. So I think it was like the last week of February where things were still like slightly open, but then like first week of March, it's like everything closed down. Yeah. Yep. So it's like couldn't go out for my birthday. Grocery stores were packed and out of everything I needed. That was the one thing that really upset me was the store and I couldn't find my fish. I'm like, why is it the entire year I've been able to get fish? Now all of a sudden my fish is gone.
People took all the chicken and then they went over to the fish and you're like, no, that was my secret.
Exactly. That was my fish. That was my cauliflower. Who's buying it all?
They don't know, but that was my fish. You can go get your SpaghettiOs. I'm taking the fish.
I got really mad about that. So yeah, that's how I spent my birthday, being mad and somebody bought all of my fish. It's so funny because like I was going to get my fish friends and they're all like, hey, listen, I got some spare fish if you really need it.
You're like trying to make a drug deal with fish. You're like, why do I live in the Maryland area and having a problem getting fish?
Exactly. It's like everyone decided this was the moment we're going to just buy up all the stuff that Sarah normally buys. It felt like a conspiracy against me. Yep.
Well, girl, what's your social media for everybody?
Oh, so it's s.rutayisire. So it's s. my last name, pretty much.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I enjoyed this. It's good to have someone who, we're amateurs and it's nice to give back a little bit. I think a little bit of our advice and what we've done can go along.
I definitely love what you're doing with the podcast, just showing like the female perspective of like what it's like to be a bodybuilder from like an amateur to someone who's nationally qualified from like both figure and bodybuilding. So it's just nice to have like a balanced perspective because like majority of the podcasts are mainly male.
Yes, they are mostly male. I've seen a few.
It's very hard to find female podcasts.
Yeah, there's some bikini ones out there, but if I'm honest, I think a lot of the bikini ones are more about like hard dieting and like low body fat and like I don't know, like to me I'm like, well,
I haven't seen that many that are focused more on like figure women's physique and bodybuilding.
Yes, and exactly, and that's what I want to have
like follow. So it's nice that you're doing this.
Thanks. I'm trying. We'll get pros eventually. I do have some pros lined up, but I told them already. I was like, listen, like once I get some more followers and some views, like I'll start bringing pros because I feel like right now it's like I want them to at least get some attention too. So
yeah, because that would be really cool to just hear it from like not just the amateurs, but also from like the pros perspective.
I'll get them. Don't worry. I'm a good talker. I'll be like,
stay tuned.
Alrighty, girl. Well, thank you. All
right. Bye.
See ya. Bye.